The profit margin is far too low, Ava. There are at least 3 areas we can cut costs immediately. My younger sister Lily, wearing an expensive blazer, declared this while swiping through the screen of her tablet. The first target was labor costs. In other words, my salary. Sitting across the desk, I was left speechless. As I listened to Lily, who had just become the new owner of Monroe and Company Realty, explain that she intended to reduce the compensation I had earned from 9 years of dedication to 60% of its current amount. It's nothing personal, Ava. This is business. She spoke with a perfectly practiced smile, as if she had rehearsed the line in front of a mirror. We simply need to align your compensation with the market standard. My name is Ava Monroe, and I'm 34 years old. I've built my entire career in this city's real estate industry. When my father's company faced bankruptcy, I was the one who, from 0 clients, built the foundation of loyal customers through literal blood and sweat. I didn't hesitate to work more than 70 hours a week. It was all to protect the family business. Feeling my heart pounding unpleasantly, I forced myself to stay composed and asked, "When does that decision take effect?" Lily had already turned her gaze back to the tablet, clearly losing interest. "Decide by the end of this week whether you'll accept it or not." It was, in essence, a termination notice. What I had built over the years wasn't just numbers and contracts, it was a network of genuine human trust with each and every client. And now, my 28-year-old sister with an MBA was dismissing it all as inefficient. This wasn't about salary, it was about my beliefs, my relationships with clients, everything I stood for being trampled underfoot. I caught my breath. The woman sitting before me was supposed to be my little sister, the same girl I'd known all my life. But the words coming out of her mouth sounded like those of a corporate consultant. Market standard? Lily, don't you understand? Our clients aren't the market. They're real people, like the Clarks, whom I've served for 3 generations. Or Mr. Bennett, whose retirement home search I supported for years. They trust this company because they trust me. My salary is the reward for that trust. Stop being emotional. Lily's reply was cold and sharp. That approach isn't scalable. From now on, we'll implement a new client management system to ensure a standardized, high-quality service, no matter who's in charge. Client satisfaction will be tracked through KPIs. Honestly, Ava, your personal touch has become the bottleneck holding this company back. Bottleneck. She called the bond I had built with my clients over 9 years of my life a bottleneck. Clients aren't machines. They're making the biggest purchase of their lives. What they need isn't a cold system or a scripted manual response. They need advice from someone they can truly trust. Don't you understand that? That's an outdated way of thinking. Lily turned off her tablet and stood up. The data shows there's a more efficient way. Anyway, the decision's already been made. Business can't be driven by emotion, that's all there is to it. All I could do was watch her walk out of the room. In Lily's eyes, there were no faces of clients, only numbers and graphs on a screen. But what shocked me most was the fact that our own father, had allowed this to happen. The short hallway from Lily's office back to my desk had never felt so long. Her words echoed in my head again and again. Business can't be driven by emotion. Your way is the bottleneck. When I sat down at my desk, Isabella Torres, the office manager sitting across from me, looked at me with concern. She had been my right hand for 9 years, a comrade who had supported every corner of this company by my side. Ava, you look awful. Did something happen? I tried to force a smile, but it didn't work. I'm fine, it's just about the new policy. Lily's policy, right? Isabella interrupted me, lowering her voice. Ever since she came, everything's been upside down. Yesterday, she even handed out a new phone manual to everyone. Keep all client calls under 5 minutes, she said. Can you believe that? What if Chloe, one of our longtime clients, called because she'd lost her dog and just needed someone to talk to? Are we supposed to hang up on her after 5 minutes, right in the middle of offering condolences? Her words made me realize she felt the same unease that I did. She wasn't just an employee. She, like me, remembered every client's face, name, and family story. She was part of this company's very heart. I nodded slightly. She doesn't understand the way we work. She sees the relationships I've spent years building as nothing more than expenses on a spreadsheet. Isabella looked at me with a pained expression, as if she understood everything without me saying it. She talked to you about your pay, too, didn't she? She did the same to me. Yesterday, she handed me a new employment contract. Adjustment due to operational efficiency, she called it. 15% pay cut. After 9 years of working side by side with you, this is our reward? We looked at each other in silence. This was no longer the Monroe and Company we once knew. A cold storm called profit was sweeping through, trying to tear away everything we had carefully built. And if the core of this company, were to leave, what would happen to our clients? That thought tightened around my chest like a vice. That afternoon, I could hardly focus on work. I answered client calls, but my voice was hollow, my mind elsewhere. This couldn't go on. I needed an outside perspective. I picked up the phone and dialed a familiar number. It belonged to Nathan Brooks, a real estate attorney who had known our family since my father's days. Nate, it's me, Ava. Do you have a minute? A calm, low voice came from the other end. Ava, you sound troubled. What's going on? And then, as if a dam had burst, I told him everything. What Lily had said to me, how Isabella had been treated, and how the company's entire philosophy had been twisted beyond recognition. I told him how my father had transferred all his shares to Lily, making her the legal owner. When the company faced bankruptcy years ago, I didn't contest his decision, because I never sought that role for myself. I wanted to honor my father's belief that the business should stay in the family. So instead of taking the CEO title, I chose to become Lily's advisor, her silent guardian, while holding the company's true reins from behind the scenes. When I finished speaking, Nate was silent for a long time before finally replying in a steady voice. I see. Legally speaking, the shares make Lily the rightful owner. Unfortunately, without a signed agreement, any verbal promise holds no binding power. So I just have to sit back and watch as the company my father and I built gets turned into a soulless machine that worships profit? My voice trembled so much I barely recognized it as my own. Ava, what is a company? Nate's voice was calm, yet it cut straight to the heart. Is it that office? The sign on the wall? No. The real asset you've built over these 9 years, what is it? I couldn't answer. It's the expertise in your head and the deep, unbreakable trust you've built with each client. He continued, Lily may own the company, but she doesn't understand the value of its greatest asset. And that asset, Ava, can't be taken from you. Not by her, not even by your father. My asset. Exactly. And don't forget, wherever you go, that asset follows. So think carefully, Ava. What is it you truly want to protect? And is that place really where you can protect it? Even after hanging up, I sat there for a long time, still clutching the receiver in my hand. Nate's words echoed in my mind. Your asset follows you wherever you go. At that moment, within the darkness of despair, I felt a faint but undeniable light flicker to life in my heart. After my call with Nate, I spent the rest of the week thinking. Constantly. Restlessly. Lily's deadline was fast approaching. Would I accept the 60% pay cut and follow her methods? Or would I walk away from everything and leave this company behind? On Saturday night, I sat alone on the couch in my living room. 9 years' worth of notebooks were stacked neatly on the table before me. Each time I turned a page, a client's face came to mind. The young couple, nervous about buying their first home. The family who moved into a larger house after their baby was born. The elderly couple who spent their retirement savings to secure their final home. I hadn't just sold properties. I had stood beside people at some of the most important turning points of their lives. Lily had called that approach too personal and inefficient. But to me, it was everything. Those connections were what I truly wanted to protect. They were the heart of my pride, the meaning of my work. Nate's words came back to me. What is it you truly want to protect? The answer was already clear. What I wanted to protect wasn't the name Monroe and Company. It was my clients, the people who trusted me. It was the bond we shared. And to protect that bond, I couldn't stay there any longer. Under Lily's management, sooner or later, that trust would be broken. And that was something I could never allow. My eyes drifted to the computer screen. Without realizing it, I had begun typing a few words into the search bar. Commercial office lease. Real estate license independent. Small business funding. As I scrolled through the endless links on the screen, I felt the fog in my head begin to clear. I didn't have a concrete plan yet. I had no funding lined up, no office space secured, but for the first time, the path ahead was clear. Lily, you're wrong. The most important thing in business isn't profit margins, it's trust between people. And I'm going to prove it. In my own way, my resolve was firm. I was no longer bound by the chains of the family business. It was time to walk my own path. On Friday morning, the deadline, I arrived at the office earlier than usual. Before giving Lily my final answer, there was someone I needed to speak with first. The office was still empty, except for Isabella, who was quietly preparing for the day at her desk. Good morning, Isabella. Do you have a moment to talk? Sensing something serious in my tone, she immediately pulled her hands away from the keyboard. Of course. What is it, Ava? Today's the day you have to give your answer, right? We walked to the break room, the only place where we could talk in private. I took a deep breath before speaking. I've made my decision. I'm leaving the company. Isabella looked startled, but after a moment she nodded slowly, as if she'd already known. I see. I had a feeling you would. You could never agree with Lily's way of doing things. That's true, but I'm not just quitting, I continued. I'm going to start my own company. Her eyes widened. Seriously? Ava, you mean... Nothing's decided yet. I know it's a reckless move, but I don't have another choice. I need to protect the clients who trust me from Lily's methods. I want to create a place where I can offer them the same genuine service they've always relied on, built with my own hands. I looked her straight in the eyes. So this isn't a request. I just wanted to tell you my decision. You've built a career here, Isabella. I can't ask you to take the same risk with me. She was silent for several seconds, studying my face. Then, a confident smile slowly spread across her lips. What are you talking about, Ava? You really thought you could leave me behind? She shook her head, half exasperated, half amused. Who do you think I've been working for these past 9 years? For you. If you're doing this, I'm doing it too. Obviously, I'll hand in my resignation today as well. In that moment, I felt tears welling up in my eyes. I had prepared myself to fight this battle alone, but I was wrong. Right there beside me stood someone who shared my vision completely, a true partner. Without saying a word, we reached for each other's hands and held them tightly. After sealing my promise with Isabella, I took an envelope from my desk and walked toward Lily's office. I knocked on the door. Come in, came a short reply. When I entered, Lily was already in the middle of a video conference. Noticing me, she turned to the screen and said, I'll be right back, before facing me with a cold, expressionless look. Good morning, Ava. Have you made your decision? Yes, I answered calmly and placed the envelope on her desk. Read this. Lily frowned slightly, picked up the envelope, and unfolded the letter inside. It contained just one sentence. Due to personal reasons, I hereby resign effective today. For a brief second, the professional mask on her face slipped, revealing genuine shock. You're resigning? Are you serious? Over a salary adjustment? This isn't about salary, Lily. For the first time in days, I looked my sister straight in the eyes, calmly, steadily. This is about principles, about my beliefs, toward my work and my clients. I can't work under your methods. That's all. Lily leaned back in her chair, studying me as if assessing a stranger. Don't be foolish. What, you're going to join some other real estate agency? Let me remind you, this industry's small. I'll figure that out, I lied. There was no reason to reveal my real plan just yet. Lily scoffed and, as if already bored, reached for my resignation letter. Fine, I'll notify HR. Make sure your desk is cleared by this afternoon. At that moment, the office door opened again, and Isabella walked in. Without hesitation, she stepped up to Lily's desk and placed an envelope identical to mine right beside it. I'm sorry, Miss Lily, she said clearly. I'm resigning effective today as well. This time, Lily's expression froze completely. That scenario, the company's top agent and her trusted office manager walking out on the same day, was probably never covered in Lily's MBA textbooks. In the days following our departure, Lily acted swiftly. Her response was far more malicious and direct than we could have imagined. Just as Isabella and I had begun sketching out the first outlines of our future plans, the phone rang. It was Mr. Bennett, one of my longest standing clients, and his voice trembled with anger. Ava, what on earth is going on? I just got a call from your sister's office. They said you were fired for a serious contractual mistake that cost the company money. They even told me my own deal nearly fell through because of you. I felt the blood drain from my face. Lily wasn't just trying to block my return to the industry, she was trying to destroy the very foundation of my career, trust, by spreading lies. All I could do was whisper, "None of that is true." But behind the scenes, things were unfolding far beyond what I could imagine. I wouldn't learn the full extent of it until everything was already over. Later, Mr. Bennett himself told me what had happened. After hanging up with me, he immediately called Mrs. Clark, another long-term client. "Something's not right," he told her. "Ava would never do something like that." That single phone call became the spark that lit the fire. Mrs. Clark began reaching out to other clients, widening the circle. Lily's malicious lies became a test of loyalty, a crucible of trust. And my clients did not waver. If anything, her lies united them. They began saying one thing in common: we have to find Ava. That movement spread quickly, across community bulletin boards, local forums, and neighborhood social media groups. A few weeks later, one client even showed me their smartphone screen, their voice full of excitement. "Look, people were posting messages like these." Monroe and Company's attitude has suddenly become hostile. It doesn't make sense that Ava was fired for no reason after all her years of service. Does anyone know how to reach her? At the time, of course, I knew nothing about any of it. I was still reeling, powerless against Lily's attacks. But the arrow she'd fired to isolate us had turned, like a boomerang, into the very network that would lead people straight to us. The rumor that clients were looking for me reached us through Nate. "Ava, this isn't the time to stay in hiding," he said, his voice charged with energy even through the phone. "Build a new foundation. Fast. People are waiting for you." Those words lit a fire under us. Isabella and I moved at full speed, applying for bank loans, signing an office lease. Everything seemed to fall into place with remarkable speed, as if fate itself were propelling us forward. And then, just a few months after leaving the company, Homestead Realty Partners was born. The boxes were still stacked in the corners of our small office when we opened our doors for the first time. There were no grand announcements, no flashy promotions. We had only told a few trusted clients, through Nate, that a new home base was ready. On the morning of our grand opening, exactly at 9 a.m., the office door swung open. Standing there were Mr. Bennett and Mrs. Clark. "We found you, Ava." And with that, people began pouring in, like a flood. Clients I'd worked with for years, their families, their friends. Our small office was quickly filled with laughter, warmth, and energy. I saw the post on the community site. My friend messaged me. I came right away. They laughed off the lies Lily had spread and celebrated our new beginning with genuine joy. In the middle of the excitement, the phone rang. The caller was Mr. Whitman, the largest property owner in town. "Ava, word about your new company is all over the industry. I want you to handle all of my properties. I'm done with your sister's way of doing business." It wasn't just clients anymore. Even premium property listings, the very backbone of business, started coming our way. The phones wouldn't stop ringing. Congratulations, partnership offers, and contract requests came one after another. As I looked around, barely able to believe what I was seeing, I felt a quiet certainty rise within me. This was it. The ultimate victory of trust over business. The human connection Lily had dismissed as inefficient had created the most undeniable result of all. A month passed since our thrilling launch. The momentum hadn't slowed. It was growing stronger by the day. More than 70% of former Monroe and Company clients had already requested to move their accounts to us. Major property owners like Mr. Whitman were cutting ties with Lily's firm the moment their contracts allowed, choosing to partner with us instead. Then, one evening, while I was still at the office, the phone rang again. It was Nate, but this time his usually calm voice carried a sharp, urgent edge. "Ava, something serious has happened. It's about your sister's company." What he told me next was shocking. Several property owners, including Mr. Whitman, and clients who had been forced into unfair contracts, had begun consulting with Nate. "This is no longer a matter of poor management decisions," he said, his voice heavy with restrained anger. Her actions constitute multiple violations: failure to disclose material facts under real estate law, the acceptance of improper kickbacks from partner vendors, and quite possibly outright fraud. A victims group has already been formed, and they've filed an official complaint with the State Real Estate Commission. The class action lawsuit is now entering its final stage. Lily had learned how to generate profit from her MBA textbooks, but not the basic laws and ethics that govern real business. And there's one more thing about the damage she caused you personally, Nate continued. Multiple clients have provided recorded statements confirming that she deliberately spread false claims, specifically that Ava was fired for a serious contractual error that caused losses to the company. That's clear business interference and a malicious act of defamation. If you want, we can file a lawsuit against her. But I should warn you, defamation cases are complex. A win won't come easily. I gripped the receiver tightly, biting my lip. To sue my only sister, my own flesh and blood. For a brief moment, I hesitated, but then I saw it again in my mind. Lily's cold eyes, her voice declaring, "It's just business." And the faces of the clients who had suffered because of her lies. Hurt, anxious, betrayed. She hadn't only tried to take my salary, she had tried to strip away my pride, my career, and the trust I'd spent years building. If she had crossed the line of the law, then there was no reason for me to hold back anymore. "Do it, Nate," I said quietly, but with absolute conviction. "I'll fight, to defend my 9 years of work and the honor of the people who believed in me." The blade Lily had swung in the name of business was now about to be shattered by something far greater and heavier: the hammer of law. Word of the class action lawsuit spread quickly throughout the industry and reached my father's ears as well. A few days later, he burst into our office, his face pale and shaken. In his trembling hands, he clutched the latest issue of the regional business paper. Across the front page, in bold black letters, was the headline: "Monroe and Company faces class action lawsuit. Allegations of fraud and unethical practices." "Ava, is it true? Are all of these accusations real?" He looked older than I'd ever seen him, his face etched with exhaustion and disbelief. I nodded quietly. "She crossed the line, Dad, and I've decided to sue her for defamation as well." He nearly collapsed into a chair. "My God, the company I built with my life, the name you fought so hard to protect, now dragged through the mud." At last, he understood. He finally saw the full weight of his mistake. Blinded by the elegance of Lily's business proposal, my father had refused to listen to the daughter who had kept the company alive for 9 long years. Me. That, he later admitted, was his greatest mistake. That afternoon, he summoned Lily to the company office for what would be their final confrontation. According to what he told me later, the woman who showed up was no longer the confident daughter he once admired. She was pale, trembling, surrounded by chaos. Her desk was buried under thick envelopes from law firms demanding responses to the growing number of lawsuits. "What is this, Lily?" my father shouted, slamming the newspaper on her desk. "What is this article?" She reportedly screamed back at him, "It's not my fault. The data was flawless. The real problem is you, stuck in your outdated ways, and her. My sister, who only got anywhere by cozying up to clients, and those incompetent employees who couldn't keep up with me." Even at that moment, she refused to admit fault, blaming everyone else instead. That final display of arrogance severed the last thread of affection my father had for her. "Enough," he said quietly, but his tone carried finality. "What you've done isn't business. It's destruction. You are unfit to be a leader. No, unfit to be called a human being." Right then and there, my father called his attorney and resigned from every remaining position he held within the company. He ordered the immediate submission of his formal resignation. Then he turned to Lily and delivered his final verdict. "I disown you. You are no longer part of this family. Pay the damages with the assets I gave you. You'll receive not a single cent more from me." In the end, Lily had destroyed not only the company's leadership, but the very foundation of her family, the final sanctuary she had left. A few days later, the doors of Monroe and Company were covered with yellow court notices, stamped in harsh red ink. Notice of seizure. It was an unceremonious end to what had once been our family's proud legacy. 2 years passed. I eventually heard through the grapevine what had become of Lily. She lost the class action lawsuit completely and was forced to pay enormous damages. liquidating nearly all the assets our father had given her. The State Real Estate Commission imposed one of its harshest penalties, just short of permanent revocation, a long-term suspension of her license and a massive fine. It was, for all intents and purposes, a lifetime ban from the industry. She also lost the defamation suit I had filed against her. Nate told me that when she appeared in court, she was barely recognizable, her once flawless confidence replaced by exhaustion and defeat. By court order, a small apology notice appeared in the corner of the local real estate paper. We sincerely apologize for the statements that severely damaged the reputation of Miss Ava Monroe. Those few lines must have shattered whatever pride she had left. Disowned by our father, stripped of her wealth and abandoned by her peers, Lily disappeared into a town where no one knew her name. The data and efficiency Lily had worshipped so blindly meant nothing in the courtroom. My new company, Homestead Realty Partners, has continued to grow steadily ever since. Our team has expanded, and Isabella is now more than just my right hand. She's my co-founder, my equal. Together, we still follow the same approach Lily once dismissed as inefficient. We take time with every client, listen to their stories, and stand beside them through each chapter of their lives. What I did wasn't revenge. It was proof. Proof that beyond the polished logic found in MBA textbooks, the true foundation of any business lies in the invisible bonds of trust between people. And that chasing short-term cost cuts and profit margins can destroy a company's most vital, irreplaceable asset. An asset that never appears on a balance sheet. Trust. The greatest success isn't defeating someone else. It's building a life where you can share happiness with those you trust by doing things the way you believe in. The windows of our office still glow with a warm light each evening. It's the same light I lit alone 9 years ago. And now, with many by my side, I continue to protect it. A light that will never fade. The light of trust.